Imagine this. Aliens arrived on Earth, gifting us with the most advanced technology that we can't even comprehend. Yet, the same technology allows us to realize every materialistic dream we as a human race has ever imagined. Of course, many prospered, but even more others didn't. But we have long accepted that this is but the natural order and scheme of things. And we started extracting from Mother Earth what we want, including her life force, much, much faster than we can replenish it. We have the technology and know-how given by the same aliens to restore Mother Earth, but your neighbors and even your own family members, fellow human beings, kept bickering and fighting over why others are allowed to keep on extracting whilst you have to stop. Before we knew it, we were enslaved. The entire human race were enslaved and dependent on the aliens and their technology to even just exist. The aliens continued reaping whatever they have been from us, from Earth, whilst we humans fight each other over who can contribute more to the aliens, in hope that we will be favored over who gets more in return. All whilst the land of Mother Earth became increasingly barren and the air we needed to breathe became less and less breathable, even more and more toxic. One day, the aliens turned on us and decided to launch a global attack on all human beings, in cahoots with a small group of humans who simply wanted to dominate and monopolize and keep it all for themselves. Mother Earth also decided to fight back, raising water levels, temperature levels, not only just to try healing herself, but also to stop the excessive plundering and abuse of her kindness before she is beyond savior. Now, the aliens started chasing people with their advanced technological weapons through the streets, and you found yourself being hunted. You and your family and your friends. You ran and ran in panic through the almost unbreathable air. You found yourself falling into a dark, deep, sweltering, hot underground shelter, a temporary safe house, while screams and screeches of other humans, explosions and stinging sounds of weapons ring through the darkness that you found yourself in. This is where humans gather to put up the last fight against the aliens. In this shelter or safe house, you found yourself gathered with many of your sworn enemies and adversaries. They have stolen from you and your family, your parents and grandparents. They were trodden by their parents. They have plundered the riches the aliens helped them amass over the years. They have destroyed more than they have constructed. They, your enemies, your adversaries, are now here with you in this safe house, as vulnerable as you, running from the same enemies, the same aliens, facing the same fate, and converging towards the same destiny. This is where we're at right now, on Mother Earth. The aliens metaphorize us, or is a metaphor for the unfettered capitalism that has colonized our minds and our economies and our lives. The aliens symbolizes the industrialization without environmentalization that we see as a rule rather than the exception. The sheltered safe house is, well, none other than the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, I paraphrase, for man holds in his mortal hands the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life. Now, these wise words, spoken by the then US President, John F. Kennedy, during his inauguration speech in 1961. It was the year that the Berlin Wall was erected and Tunku Abdul Rahman's plan to form a federation of Malaysia was hatched. Those words were relevant then, and arguably much more so more than ever before right now, especially after Mother Nature hit us with this pandemic. Now, the word patient, P-A-T-I-E-N-T, true to its etymological source or its meaning, is to suffer in Greek and Latin, and is poignant in both its adjective form as well as a noun. Other than the rich and the powerful, those who walk the corridors of power, we have all become patients of the pandemic, whilst those who can afford to wait out the adverse economic effects tell us to be patient, the rest of us patients have to literally suffer to be patient. The pandemic that is still tearing around the world right now, taking lives and livelihoods, has shown us that the crippled economy is by far the most persistent symptom of the SARS-CoV-2 COVID-19 virus. The damage stays with vulnerable groups way beyond after one is free from the very virus itself. Now, businesses that has closed down as a result of lockdowns meant that jobs were wiped out. People who, contracted, who got the virus and won the fight, yet lost their jobs for being away for too long. Other people, those in industries that had to be sacrificed, like travel, tourism, hospitality, entertainment, to prevent transmission. Those forced out of education and into work, unwillingly, not ready to replace deceased family members just to make ends meet. These groups, these people, these humans, and many more others will continue to be patients of COVID long after we have control over the physical disease of the virus. Long COVID is real, not only from a medical sense, but definitely also from an economic sense. To truly cure us of COVID-19, we need to really cure ourselves of the economic ills and economic dis-ease that came along with it. Now, a sustainable economy requires it to be human-centric, a human economy. But different humans live in different life worlds with different worldviews that frame and inform their respective interests. Therefore, human interests are wide and multifaceted and may not always fit the interests of the planet, of the world, of Mother Earth. Now, politics, not partisan politics, not non-partisan politics, but pan and across partisan politics, has a major role to play in mass mobilization, to put actions and take steps towards realizing the Sustainable Development Goals to save our Mother Earth. In most economies, development is the cornerstone or the currency as well as their building blocks. Now, the choice is either the sustainable type of economy or development, or the vicious, destructive type that suffocates the planet and our collective future and shared destiny. Now, in most economies too, political direction and structures are there to drive norms and frame the economies and regulations and mold societal opinions and mass actions. Like carbon emissions are byproducts of development gone by or of days gone by, and inequality is an emission of an unsustainable development, maybe we can succeed, if we succeed, even sequester hate and division from the current political atmosphere and rebuild the economy with carbon capturing concrete. No bloodshed, no revolution, constructive and not destructive disruptions, one step, one project, one community, one transformative change at a time. We, especially in Malaysia, are so disillusioned by politics and politicians since the upheaval in early 2020 that it is far easier to discredit politics and politicians altogether. It is hard to blame anyone for a complete distrust towards democracy, as it has seemingly failed us. Now, democracy will always be a high-hanging tightrope laden with double-edged swords. It can instill and deliver real freedom, justice, solidarity for all if its spirit, its structure and substance are equally upheld. In this age of disruptions, the natural democratic order in our global polity or global politics has been genetically modified and mutated to favor the regressive conservatives. The victimized, overwhelmingly majority group of humans have been forcefully nurtured into being defensive by default. And there is no more formidable retardant for hopes, progress, and the realization of the SDGs than a self-isolating defensive war. A paradigm shift is severely needed to reverse this self-perpetuating vicious cycle. Democracy is sadly the only way to break this viciously rigged cycle of competition, rather than an instrument to uphold virtuous cycles of prosperity and mutual cooperation. The result is this: the demos part of democracy, the people, is losing confidence in the very notion that lends power, the kratos part of democracy. We have an existential problem for the human civilization if we, the people, continue to lose confidence in the power of the people, in democracy. The monumental challenge as youths today is not only to win the immediate battles without bloodshed, but to win the war against ourselves, not by force, but by disarmament. We must not fight fire with fire, by fire, during this time of disruptive destructions. Now, in order for us, and us human beings, the human race, and democracy to survive, mass mobilization as an entire human race, a global nation, not just a segment of the entire spectrum, but across the different spectra of the entire humanity, to achieve a global consensus and compromise on democracy. And it is up to us, progressives, especially the youth, to take this quantum leap forward. We must counter exclusivity with inclusivity. We must move beyond perpetual competition by inspiring cooperation. We must render mere tolerance of the other completely irrelevant by embracing our differences. And it is incumbent upon the youth to lead, to inspire and rally all generations, young and old, past and future, and to galvanize together to save democracy and to save our world, and to achieve the SDGs. No more than ever, the left and the right need to come together to return human civilizations to the path of democracy. Real democracy, where the strong acts in the interest of the weak, the marginalized are protected from harm, the rich distributes their wealth to the poor, whether it be for the right or the wrong reason, as long as it is done. Those who bear battle scars on their backs, those who have sought decades of vengeance yet remain unfound, they won't move to make this happen. They won't make it possible. Those vested in the past have no incentive to do so. It can and must be you, us, the young, who has no place in the past and have no choice but to save the future from doom. Only we can do this. Now, let's not forget that the SDGs, the 17 painstakingly negotiated and agreed upon universal goals of the civilized world, were actually achieved through a lengthy political process. Now, I put it to you that since these monumental goals were a product of a political process with a view to heal the world, let these goals also serve as a political tool to heal democracy. Now, when markets crash and governments fail, people turn to each other. We saw that during the pandemic. When those who occupy the corridors of the tribalistic and elitist political architecture of the old, when they fail to deliver with their rhetoric, with their fight and with their confrontations, the young and the idealistic from all sides turn to each other with their ideas, their idealism and actions. The youth of today stand to lose the most due to the actions taken by those before us, and stand to lose everything if we continue with the inaction that we are accustomed to today. The youth of today are also the least burdened by the baggage of history and the grudges borne by generations gone by. The battle scars that became inspiration behind war cries to fight each other must now become the galvanizing reminders of how fickle and fragile we as a human race can be when we are not united. So we can rise together against the real common enemy, which is what? Which is inequality, the climate crisis, the vicious and violent hidden hand of the unbridled laissez-faire economy, and a disunited humanity tainted and blinded by hatred and division. Now, there must always be a call to action, and I'm here to urge you all to do 3 things. First, identify 3 goals in which you find the most affinity with your work, your worldview, your interests, your friends, your family, 3 goals that you have most connections with. Secondly, find one person whom you dislike, an organization which you believe stands in opposition, polar opposition to that of your organization. For example, if you're an environmental organization who has demonstrated outside a factory for their environmental malpractices, or if you're a workers' rights organization that has picketed in front of a company for workers' rights abuses, or if you're a political activist like me, find someone on the opposite side and dig deep into your hearts and find every ounce of empathy in you and try to engage them using the SDGs as a basis for discussion and try to understand their point of view. Thirdly, ask the person, ask those organizations if they also share your passion in achieving your 3 priority goals. And if there is even one goal which you mutually agree with, immediately start charting a course of action in cooperation at whatever level you're able and comfortable with. And of course, if there isn't, and there's nothing that you mutually care for, go back to step 2 and repeat until you find someone to do something with that will work towards achieving the goals. The SDGs can be a great galvanizer and a peacemaker, a universal unifier that brings us humans back together as a united force of actions to achieve those goals. Remember those aliens I mentioned earlier on? Remember that before they went rogue and crazy and all, guns blazing and started to divide us, they brought us technology that brought us progress. If we are reunited and undivided, we may just win this war, restore Mother Earth, save ourselves from the climate crisis, and be in control of those technology and the fate of humankind. And in that world, the 17 goals would no longer be goals, but the real new norm. Thank you.